So thank you for tuning in to a new episode of Stop, Look, and Listen. This week, we have the privilege of a special guest. We have an NCAA champion at University of Connecticut, two-time WNBA champion with the Minnesota Lynx, media personality. I think she's tapping into some acting as well. An activist. We have Renee Montgomery joining us on Stop, Look, and Listen. How are you doing, Renee?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem. It's an honor. So before we get into any serious business, I recognize that you're from like Charleston, West Virginia.
Yeah.
Give me some tips. How do you drive through West Virginia? Like my anxiety is on 10 whenever I'm passing through, and I have like my hands on the steering wheel.
10 and 2, right? You got it at 10
yes.
and 2. No, I would say enjoy the ride. You know, West Virginia is scenic. So one of the things that I noticed as I travel more and I go to different places is that I got really used to being submerged in nature in West Virginia with the mountains, the hills. There's some woods right beside my house. So if you're driving through West Virginia, my tip is enjoy the view.
Okay. I'm going to try.
Yeah, you got to enjoy it. I mean,
it's really
nice, though. It is a nice view.
Yeah, I'm focused on just staying on the road and not veering off.
Focus on that as well. I'm just saying, enjoy the mountains, the nature, the trees. If you go during the fall, you'll see the leaves and everything. It's like beautiful, actually.
All right. So as I was saying in the introduction, Renee has a lot going on. Like I'm sure you've seen her all over media, whether that's on NBA TV or ESPN or TMZ Sports. She's everywhere. So we're proud of you.
Thank you.
But let's just jump into like your college career and the success at UConn, winning the national championship, playing point guard.
Yeah.
For Hall of Fame coach Gino Auriemma.
Yeah.
Just talk about some of the lessons that Coach Auriemma instilled in you that you're using to this day.
I would say everything revolves around discipline. You know, that's athletes. I think that's one of the things athletes excel in, which is what makes athletes successful after basketball and successful in anything else they do. Because once you learn to be disciplined with your time and disciplined with your mind, there's not a lot you can't do. So I started learning that obviously in my home because my parents are very disciplined people. And then it just got nailed home at UConn with Coach Auriemma. So I would just say just understanding that your time is valuable and you treat it that way.
Okay. So speaking of that UConn lineage, like yourself and Sue Bird and Maya Moore, you're like three of the stars that have been at the forefront in more ways than one regarding all of the activism that's taking place. Is that also something that Coach Auriemma encouraged all of his players?
See, that's different because, you know, it's interesting to see that so many players from UConn have felt compelled to take a stand. I don't think it's a coincidence though, because UConn, they're known to recruit a certain type of player, and it's not just only a good basketball player. They want a player that's a good basketball player, but also a good kid, as they like to say. So I don't think there's a coincidence that there's so many of us from UConn with the same views.
Right. Okay, nice. So your career started out with the Minnesota Lynx with the WNBA, and you've had amazing success winning 2 championships. But what stands out to me was like your team, their handling of the Philando Castile murder in Minnesota, and how you all had a press conference and wore T-shirts and just sort of made an effort to bring more attention, taking a stand that a lot of athletes at that time was somewhat hesitant to do. Could you take us inside the locker room and what led to the decision and the support from your coach and general manager?
Yeah, I think the same thing that happened today, in a sense of we saw some injustice that was happening right in front of our eyes and on national television for everyone to see. So we're like, what is going on? And we wanted to do something about it. You know, our captains came to us with the idea to wear these shirts. The shirt said "Change starts with us" on the front. It had, the police shield on the back, just so everyone knew where we were coming from. We try to cover all of our bases, but 4 years ago, we weren't at the same place we are now. Now we have leagues and players outright just wearing things that say Black Lives Matter, players that are taking a stand. We have 4 leagues boycott. So we've come so far in the 4 years. And I say that to say in 2016, it was just not very welcomed. As much as we tried to explain ourselves and put, the police shield on the back and for people to understand us, people still didn't. And that's why it's exciting for someone like me in 2020 to see where we were in 2016 and now to fast forward to where we are in 2020. That's why I'm excited. People wonder why I'm so optimistic, why I'm so happy. I'm like, look, I saw in 2016 where we couldn't even have Black Lives Matter on a shirt. And now in 2020, you see whole leagues. It's a whole new league. That's the slogan of the NBA. That's crazy. So that's where my optimism comes from, the growth of it all.
Right. We're seeing Black Lives Matter on the court, even baseball, which honestly is one of the last sports I felt that embraced, our plight. They're even starting to put their money where their mouth is.
It's an everybody problem now. It's not
exactly.
It's not just a minority Black problem. It's everyone's problem.
Which an interesting point, like especially after the George Floyd murder, how I was having all of these Zoom meetings with some of my colleagues of other races and ethnicities, and they were just asking questions and just wanting to pick my brain about my experience. And at first I was somewhat hesitant, but I felt like it was necessary to just, pull down the curtain and show them, this is what I go through on a daily basis. Every time I walk in the store, I have to make sure my hands are visible. So it doesn't look like I'm stealing something, or walking to my car. And if somebody else is walking to their car, make sure that I'm not too close to them to think that, oh, this person is going to rob me,
right.
So,
yeah.
So it's like survival instincts. Yeah. And it's our main objective on a daily basis is to make sure we get home safely. And no one else has that problem, I don't think.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Not here, I should say.
So now let's touch on your mother. She was an activist as well. So do you feel like that was ingrained in you from the beginning because of what she was doing back in her days?
Maybe it's in my DNA, because it's crazy because I didn't know any of this until everything happened this year. That's when my mom started to tell me things that she was doing in her past. She was involved in a walkout at her high school. That's when I found out, as I'm watching the protests happen outside of my window here in Atlanta, I'm hearing my mom tell me about things that she's went through. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, I didn't know that about my own parents. So I would say that that's where I really started to get a fire lit in me, where I'm like, a lot of people think that this is a 400 years ago problem. A lot of people think that this is a problem that just is old and people are still mad about it. No, like our parents still dealt with things. My own parents had to be involved. My mom had to be involved in the walkout. That's crazy to think about because we feel so connected and feel so advanced, but it's a reality. And so for me, I don't know, I don't know what all made me the one thing that made me opt out, but I do know that my parents had a big role in it.
What advice did they give you as far as making the decision, one, and then I guess ways to go about pursuing equal justice and getting rid of voter disenfranchisement and suppression?
The advice they gave me was not about anything specific. It was just in general, like, if this is what you want to do it. The only advice they gave me was to take some time and pray on it. And I was born and raised in the pews. So that's, of course, that's the advice they give me, but they were backing me 100%. They said, just pray on it, take your time, think about it. And if that's what you want to do, then that's what we're all doing, and that to me felt so good, just to know that my parents, no matter what, they got my back. Like, this is a crazy decision to opt out of my professional basketball career in 2020, but you know, they were here for it. They understood that this is where my heart was taking me, and they said, do it.
So how do you feel today? Do you feel like right now I'm pursuing my new passion, and maybe your professional career is in the past, or next season, do you see yourself just trying to conquer everything?
Oh yeah, no, I've only, you know, I made it known I'm only opting out of this 2020 season, so
Okay.
that's been talked about. Yeah.
All right. So you're signed with the Atlanta Dream, and their owner, Senator Kelly Loeffler, um, has made statements that she opposes Black Lives Matter,
Right.
and like clearly you've been, very vocal, and I think you even penned a letter to her,
Correct.
kind of explaining why we're protesting and why Black Lives Matter.
Correct.
How do you get through to people that are stuck in their ways and refuse to, um, I guess, like take on the words that are in the Constitution, that is liberty and justice for all, that we live in the United States of America?
Yeah. Oh, I just, you know, you can't force anyone to think something. So that's why I just penned a letter. You know, I'm not gonna try to beat it into someone's head. I'm just gonna try to say my point of view, say my thoughts, and then allow them to either receive it or reject it. You know, you can't force someone to want to see your point of view. You can just tell them it and then hope that they understand it. So that's just what I did. I don't, you know, Coach Ariema, actually, speaking of him, he told me there's going to be people that are going to be on one completely opposite side and another complete opposite side, but you need to focus on the people in the middle. So you can't focus on the extremists, you know, the people that are extreme one way or the other. You just try to reach out, say your thoughts, say your perspective, and keep it moving. So that's what I do.
Okay. So besides your activism, you've been all over the place in regards to media. Just talk about all of the projects that you're involved in, whether that's the TMZ Sports and doing play-by-play for esports and WNBA Weekly. Like, how did you find your passion to get behind a microphone?
I went to school for it. So,
Great.
yeah, I am a comms major at UConn. I worked for ESPN probably 2 years out of school, around 2010, I think. Last year, I was working for ESPN calling the G League, the NBA G League games and the women's college basketball games. So this was a continuation of the work I had already started. A lot of people, like probably like you, people don't even know that I was doing it before. And that's also to say how women's basketball, it's not as highlighted as other sports, you know. Like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people are surprised about how big of a stand the women's league, the WNBA in general, is taking, and all the women in the WNBA were like, we're not surprised, we've been doing this, like, you know what I mean.
You
But
happen. You
people
happen.
don't follow along as closely when it comes to women's basketball. So when they see things happening now, it's new to them. You know, this is brand new, and for the WNBA, nothing's new with fighting injustice. You know, like you talked about in 2016, we were already wearing the shirts. You know, and now
Right.
everybody's talking about the WNBA wearing shirts. Yeah, the WNBA has been doing this for a while, and as far as I'm concerned, I'm so thankful for the opportunities, because when I opted out, I opted out of my only job at the time. You know, the pandemic had shut down pretty much everything. So that was the WNBA was going to be my only source of income, and I opted out of it. So that was pretty alarming in a sense of, okay, what are we going to do now? But, you know, that's probably why my parents told me to pray about it, because as you see now, these blessings came in a WNBA Weekly on NBA TV. And now I'm the host of TMZ Sports on TMZ. So it's kind of crazy. The host of Gen Z and Me. And it's crazy how all these things came about. And as you mentioned, Esports Extra, we filmed that weekly on Wednesdays, and then I call some NBA 2K games, and I'm like, what? So again, it's crazy that the blessings just came and fell on my lap. But when I opted out, I literally didn't know where my next check was going to come from.
I want to hear more about the esports. Because for one, I've been hearing that there's scholarships to play esports, like at colleges. Like it's almost like a collegiate professional sports program where they have rankings and everything.
There's a lot going on in the esports world, and speaking of Morris Brown, you know, we talked about it before we actually started talking, but Morris Brown actually has an esports certificate program just to get in your mindset of, like, you could actually be certified in esports. Like that's the thing now in school, like in college, just to show where esports is going. It's kind of crazy, but yeah, for me, somebody that was already calling games for the NBA and college, then it's kind of crazy to now call games virtual games like the NBA 2K. I'm like, it's a new world, but it's the same. So for me, it's the same. I'm still watching when I called the Lakers game on NBA 2K. It's still LeBron playing. It's still AD playing. So I'm like, all right, I guess it's pretty much the same, but it's just different. You know, it's a different. It's the 21st century. I mean, things are different.
Who do you pattern your play-by-play after?
Oh, that's tough because I watch a lot of film, and when I say I watch a lot of film, like when I watch a game, even if I'm going to watch these games tonight, I'm watching the games, but I'm also listening to the announcer. I'm also studying the players. I'm also seeing what kind of plays they run. So anytime I watch games, I enjoy them, but like I take a little bit from everything I watch.
Okay. So take me into life inside of the bubble. What have some of the players been sharing with you as far as whether they would prefer to be out doing what you're doing, or whether it's more important to, I guess, show dedication to their teammates in the sport and try to win a championship at the same time, you know, trying to stay abreast of what's going on outside the bubble?
I would say that the players really are not just physically tired, but it's mentally taxing. You know, they're playing every other day. So your body's already trying to recover and you're playing every other day. And then you're also dealing with different things going on in the social climate, you know, and when the WNBA, when they decided not to play, they said they took a mental day, just a day to rest, a day to just rest your mind. And that says a lot because you know, athletes are always looked at as these strong, basically action figures, heroes. And now all athletes are starting to show some human side of it and show some emotion. And I think that's the best thing that could have came out of all of this, that people don't just look at athletes as like, just go shut up and dribble. Now they see that these athletes have feelings, these athletes have families, and they need mental days too.
Right. And then especially being away from your family for, it's been what, almost 2.5 months?
Oh yeah, a long time.
And staying in a hotel. I can barely stay in a hotel one day. So
listen, and also speaking of that, you know, on the NBA side, the coaches don't get any guests, you know, so even after the WNBA, you know, we got guests, but the NBA, the players got guests, the referees got guests, and then the coaches didn't. So imagine just on the other side of things, just the coaching staff. That I would say that's one of the most stressful jobs. I've always said from jump, I do not want to be a coach. And the reason I say that is because, one, I don't have the patience when people don't listen. But secondly, coaches, like, they work the craziest hours I've ever seen. Like, I think that I'm a hard worker when it comes to being an athlete and being in the gym. The coaches are always there before I get there. They're there when I'm leaving. They're there all the time. So for them to not have any support system, that's tough.
Yeah. I can imagine, like, Coach Oriema, or I'm trying to think of another vocal coach, maybe in like the NFL, such as like a Mike Tomlin. I can see him going months without seeing his family.
It wouldn't end well, right?
Yeah, I would feel sorry for his team, especially if Ben Roethlisberger throws an interception. That's going to be it for him.
Yeah, and people need. I mean, and honestly, all jokes aside, people really do need a support system. Like that's pretty tough for your job to tell you, all right, we have to relocate you for 6 months, and you can't have anyone come visit. That's pretty crazy. That if you were just a regular employee and your boss told you that, a lot of people would be like, what? No. Like, you know, like that would have just been a natural response. Like, what? No one can come visit me? What? But that's actually a reality in the bubble for the NBA coaches. So that's pretty tough.
Yeah, the sacrifices that they're making right now is so commendable.
Yeah.
So let's get into your activism. Tell me about the Renee Montgomery Foundation and in particular the moments, equal momentum, the last yard, and remember the third.
Yeah, so when I opted out, everyone was asking me, what do I want to do? You know, and what am I going to do with my time? And when I first opted out, I'm like, yo, I don't know. I'm just going to do something with it. And then out of my tweet, so I wrote a tweet that said basically why I'm opting out, and I wanted to keep this thing going because moments equal momentum. Like that's what I said in my tweet, and it just caught on. Like when I started doing interviews, they started asking me about that particular part of the tweet, the moments equal momentum. So I'm like, man, that part really stuck to people. So then I made a whole campaign around it, that Moments Equal Momentum campaign. And under that campaign, I talked about the last yard. And so the last yard, originally the last yard started out as there's a lot of college students that drop out of college for small amounts, somewhere between 100 and 1,000. They just can't finish paying their last on their books, tuition, room and board. So originally the last yard was to grant those students whatever. I was going to pick a certain amount of students a year and grant them a fund of the last yard and get them that last yard so they could stay in school. Well, as I was planning on that, I got in touch with a Dr. Kevin James, who's the president of Morris Brown College, and he started telling me about Morris Brown and their struggles. So then I'm like, oh no, we got to get the last yard is going to be for Morris Brown this year, getting them that last push to be elite, you know, and they are an elite university and they have a rich history and we got to get them back there. So that's what that's evolved into, getting Morris Brown back up and running high and high. And I want him to be tech. And so speaking of esports and the booming business, they're the first school in Georgia to have an esports program, you know, and that's a big deal. That's a big deal for an HBCU to be the first. So they're already making strides. And with my foundation, we want to put a tech center on Morris Brown campus. So that's what we're raising our funds for. And then secondly is Remember the 3rd of November. And that's just a campaign to connect people, connect the politics to your everyday life. Because people feel that they don't feel the need to vote. Only 60% of the population voted on in 2016. What? Okay, we have to get people connected then to the voting. Why is it important? And that's what Remember the 3rd is. It's just connecting you to why is politics important to you?
Okay. So backtrack a little bit to Dr. Kevin James.
Yeah.
I went to college with him at Winthrop University. He was a previous
Okay.
guest on Stop, Look, and Listen. So I know if he got a meeting with you, then he was able to accomplish a whole lot as far as fundraising because he excels at that.
Yeah, you know, we actually got connected through a mutual friend, Michelle Willis Taylor. I think, or is it Taylor Willis? I'm sorry, Michelle, if it's whichever one it is. But we got connected through Michelle, and it's just kind of crazy how things line up to be where you should be. Like I felt like, of course, that's how we got connected at that exact time when I just opted out, and that's the plan because I think it's not a coincidence. So yeah, it all worked itself out, and now we need to get a tech center on Morris Brown campus because, as we know, tech is innovative and coding, and that's the future. That's where everything's going, and so we have to have a level playing field.
Exactly. So kind of tied into your like voter suppression initiative. Let's tap into your involvement with More Than a Vote.
More Than a Vote.
Yes. How did LeBron gather, such a strong team, and as far as getting you and the other athletes together to put your voice out there front and center? How are you guys going to continue this push to increase voter participation in November?
Well, LeBron James is LeBron James. So that's how he gathered this unreal group of athletes and entertainers and just group of people that want to be a part of change, and that's the thing. No one really knows exactly, like no one knows exactly how everything's going to turn out, but everyone knows that we want to try. We want to try to make it better. We want to try to get the situation right. And so he has a lot of people that just want to try to do better and make better for our community. So I mean, I was excited. As soon as I got the call and I heard that they wanted me to be a part, I'm like, what? Yes, of course. Like I'm down, I'm in. What do you need? And ever since then, they've told me, all right, we're doing a push for the arenas. Can you talk about the arenas and why it's important? You know, like they've just had me very involved, and I've enjoyed it.
All right. So feel free to plug whatever you need to plug. I know you have a million things going on.
Nah, it's cool. It's cool. I do so many interviews. It's plugged. Like everything is plugged. So no problem.
All right, cool. Well, Renee, I appreciate your time. You know, thank you again for the good trouble that you've been getting into.
Hey.
Continue to excel on and off the court, and you have our support. And
Plug it. That's how you
got
plug.
I got to.
Do it. What was that? GOB Radio? Shouts to GOB Radio.
Thank you for checking us out on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe for more great content. And don't forget to check us out on social media at GOB Radio Network.